I wasn't snooping, I wasn't lurking, I was just scrolling through Instagram after a long workday when the first image stopped me, called my parents, my younger brother Frank, my sister Barbara, and even our distant cousins on a golden beach, arms around each other, all grinning like they'd just won the lottery. The caption, well-deserved family retreat. Family, that word gutted me. I stared at it for minutes, rereading it like it might rearrange itself into something less cruel. Maybe there'd be a comment below. Wish Sam could have joined us or miss you. Sam something, anything. But there was nothing. Just more photos, yacht dinners, poolside cocktails, group selfies. It was a highlight reel of a trip I never even knew was happening. A vacation I was paying for. My thumb froze on the screen. I checked my texts. Nothing. No invite, no heads up, not even a courtesy lie. I called my dad. He answered like it was any other Tuesday. Hey kid, he said, all casual, like he wasn't currently sipping mojitos with my money. Where are you all, I asked, deadpan. He paused, just for a second. Oh, on vacation. I waited, hoping for some backpedal. Without me, another pause. Well, we figured you wouldn't be interested. You're always working, you know? I was silent, not because I didn't have a response, but because I was afraid of what I might say if I let it all out. You've been planning this for months, I said finally, and you didn't even ask. We didn't want you there, he said bluntly. That did it. My breath caught in my throat. What? You just bring the energy down, he said, as if I was a stranger they were trying to shake. And that was it. No apology, no remorse, just the sound of my father brushing me aside like lint. I send you $2,500 a month, I said, my voice shaking with restrained fury. I've paid your rent, your medical bills, helped Frank out of his student loan mess, and you didn't even invite me. He sighed, the way someone does when you're making too big a deal of being stabbed in the back. You wouldn't have had fun anyway, he said. Don't make this into something it's not. Click. I hung up before I could cry, scream, or say something I'd regret. Instead, I sat there, stunned, in a silence that felt like someone had vacuumed all the air out of the room. It was never an oversight. It was never accidental. It was a choice. They chose not to include me. And not just that they planned the whole thing without a single thought of me, while I kept paying for their comfort. That night, I opened my banking app. I stopped the $2,500 transfer, deleted the schedule. Then I went into the joint savings account, one I'd been padding just in case, and saw the near-empty balance. Surprise, I withdrew every cent left and moved it to my own account. Then I did something I never imagined I'd have the strength to do. I blocked them all. Mom, Dad, Frank, Barbara, gone, like flipping a switch. And as I lay in bed that night, heart still pounding from the betrayal, something strange happened. I felt free. The next morning, my phone started buzzing before sunrise. Aunt Lisa, Uncle Dennis, my cousin Nancy, people I hadn't heard from in years suddenly had opinions. Your mom is sobbing. What's going on? Did you really cut them off? Why would you do that? You're being selfish. They raised you. But one message stood out, a number I didn't recognize. You really think you can just walk away from us after everything we've done for you? You're pathetic. Hope you enjoy being alone. My father, I didn't reply. Didn't need to. It said everything. They weren't sorry. They weren't reflecting. They were just angry they lost their ATM. I made breakfast for myself, alone, sure, but for once, not drained. By lunch, there was a loud knock at my door. I checked the peephole. Barbara, I debated not answering, but I opened it. She barreled in without waiting for permission. What the hell? Samuel, she snapped. I folded my arms. What? Mom's been crying nonstop. Dad's furious. They said you just ghosted them. I laughed a dry, sharp bark, kind of like how you all ghosted me on that vacation. She flinched. It wasn't like that. Then what was it? Barbara enlightened me. She stammered. I pressed, did anyone even ask where I was? Silence. They need you, she said finally. No, they need my money, not me. She looked at the floor. It's not fair to just leave them like this. Then you pay their bills, I said. Let's see how long you last. She didn't argue. Before she left, she said, they're not going to stop. Neither will I. By that afternoon, things escalated. My boss pulled me into his office. Samuel, I got a call this morning from your mother. My stomach dropped. She said you're having some kind of mental crisis, that you're making erratic financial decisions and might regret them. I nearly laughed. They're mad I cut them off. That's all this is. He nodded. Understood. If they call again, let me know. This kind of harassment won't be tolerated. When I got home, my phone had 17 missed calls and more messages. We are your parents. You owe us. They're selling furniture to survive. Is that what you want? They say you're punishing them for no reason. Punishing. After years of bleeding myself dry so they could live comfortably. I texted one final message before blocking the last of them. I don't owe you anything. I supported you for years. You left me out on purpose. You made your choice. I'm making mine. Block, block, block. And just like that, I was done. For the first time in over a decade, my paycheck stayed in my account. My weekends were quiet. My inbox wasn't full of pleas or threats. And I realized something terrifying and beautiful. They were never helpless. They just preferred me to be. The silence didn't last long. By week 2, their tactics shifted. No more begging, no more fake concern. Now it was warfare. I started noticing things. Emails to my work address from unfamiliar domains. A concerned friend asking if I was okay. Another asking if I'd been experiencing a manic episode. They weren't even subtle about it. That was my brother. Frank, the golden boy. The one who smiled widest in all those beach photos. I didn't respond. I just forwarded it to HR and added a note. Please flag this for harassment. By day 10, I noticed my social media logins getting weird. Notifications from unknown devices trying to access my accounts. Password reset requests. I turned on two-factor authentication, changed all my passwords, and locked everything down. It was pathetic. They had nothing left but manipulation and sabotage. And even that, they were clumsy with. Then came the ambush. I was walking out of Trader Joe's with a bag of groceries when I saw her, my mother, standing next to her car like she just happened to be in the area. Samuel, she called out like we hadn't spoken in weeks. I paused mid-step. Part of me wanted to turn around, but I didn't. I kept walking. Samuel, please, she said again, following me to my car. I unlocked the door, shoved my groceries in, and turned to her slowly. What do you want? Her eyes were glassy, a tissue clutched in one hand. We're family, she whispered. We don't give up on each other. I tilted my head. You gave up on me when you planned that vacation. She looked hurt. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. Don't rewrite it now just because you need me again. She bit her lip. Your father, he was angry. He didn't mean what he said. He meant every word. He just didn't expect me to believe him. Her voice cracked. We're struggling. Samuel, the rent, the credit cards. We don't know what to do. I stared at her. You figure it out, just like I did. You're being cruel. No, I said, unlocking my car. I'm just done being useful without being loved. Then I got in and drove away. That night, the texts got nastier. Frank, real mature, bro. Hope ignoring your family keeps you warm at night. Barbara. Mom hasn't eaten in 2 days. Hope you're proud. Dad. You've made your point. Now stop punishing us and send the money. No apologies, no remorse, just entitlement. It was like watching a house of cards collapse in real time and hearing the people inside scream at the wind for knocking it over. Around that time, I got a call from Nancy, my cousin, the only one who didn't blindly orbit the chaos. You okay? She asked. Getting there, I said. She sighed. Everyone's talking about you, saying you lost it. I laughed softly because I stopped paying their bills. Yeah, they're spinning it like you've had some kind of breakdown, but I know better. I paused. How? Because if you were really spiraling, you wouldn't be this calm. And because I remember all the times you bailed them out while they acted like you didn't exist, that silence between us was the closest thing to comfort I'd had in weeks. She continued, they keep saying you're doing this for no reason, but I saw the pictures. Sam, and I saw who wasn't in them. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. A few days later, my building's doorman handed me an envelope. No stamp, no return address, just my name. Inside, a 3-page letter from my mother. It wasn't an apology, not even close. It was a masterclass in manipulation. Page 1. Guilt. We did our best with what we had. You don't understand how hard it is being parents. Page 2. Denial. Your father didn't mean what he said. You know how he gets. Page 3. The twist. If you don't come back to the family, we'll have no choice but to take legal action for elder neglect. I stared at those words, stunned. Legal action. For not sending money. 2 adults. That was their endgame. Extort me into compliance. I scanned the letter again. No signature. just a final line in messy handwriting. "You're forcing us to do this." It was then I realized something that shook me more than the letter itself. They had never seen me as a son. Not really. To them, I was a resource, a lifeline, a wallet, and now that I'd closed the tap, they were drowning. The next day, I visited a lawyer, just to be safe. We drafted a cease and desist letter and had it delivered to their apartment. Legally binding, no contact, no harassment, no more reaching out to my workplace, my friends, or me. 2 days later, my mom violated it, called my office pretending to be a client. I forwarded the call to my lawyer. We filed a formal complaint. I wasn't playing anymore. At night, I sat in my apartment listening to old voicemails, some from birthdays they'd forgotten, some from times I'd wired money and got no reply. It was all there, in plain sound, a history of conditional affection. I started writing it down, not to publish, not for revenge, just to remember, to document. Because trauma has a funny way of making you forget the details, and I didn't want to forget. Not this time. By week 3, things changed again. Aunt Lisa posted a vague status on Facebook. "Sometimes people you love turn out to be selfish strangers. So sad watching families fall apart." The comments were predictable. "Cousin Mark, so sorry. Auntie, you've done nothing but give. Uncle Tony, ungrateful kids are the worst." I didn't reply, but Nancy did. She wrote, "Just remember, money doesn't buy love, but it sure pays the rent." That one comment triggered a war. Half the family took sides. Screenshots flew. Private messages leaked. And the truth, it was finally starting to spread. I sat back with a glass of wine and watched the unraveling happen. They'd lit the match. I just let the wind do the rest. I didn't gloat, didn't scream. I just waited. Because the thing about people who treat you like an object is they panic when you become a mirror. And I had finally held one up. It started with a shoebox. An actual dusty old shoebox buried in the back of my hall closet. I hadn't touched it in years, probably since I moved in. I pulled it down while clearing clutter, and what spilled out made my breath catch. Receipts, handwritten notes, photocopies of checks, financial records I'd saved without thinking, back when I still believed helping family was just what you did. I sat on the floor for hours, sorting every slip, every bank printout, every text screenshot I'd printed in a fog of exhaustion back when I still cared. Page after page screamed the same truth: I had been the financial backbone of the Hart family for over a decade. Not occasionally helping, not pitching in. No, I was the invisible wallet keeping the whole circus running. Frank's tuition, $42, $800 over 5 years. I paid it in chunks, always just until he gets on his feet. Spoiler alert, he never did. He got a flashy job and used his first paycheck to buy a Rolex, not pay me back. Barbara's second car, me. Mom's medical copays when she lost her insurance for the 3rd time, me. Dad's business investment in some multi-level vitamin scam, me again. Every emergency, every guilt trip, every just until we figure it out. I was the emergency fund. And what really burned? They never once acted like they owed me a thing. Not thanks, not acknowledgement, nothing. That shoebox became my proof. Not for revenge, not yet. For clarity. Because the more I read, the more I remembered all the little humiliations I'd buried. Frank laughing at my thrift store shoes at Thanksgiving, saying, "You gotta get your money up." Bro, while wearing $300 sneakers bought with my money. Barbara telling a friend I was kinda intense and antisocial when I skipped a weekend barbecue to work overtime and pay mom's rent. Dad asking me to leave early from my own birthday dinner because Frank had a long drive back. I gave, and they took, and somewhere along the line, they stopped seeing me as family at all. I was just useful. But here's the thing about being useful: you get tired, and once you do, people panic. Because now they have to actually stand. That weekend, Nancy invited me over, just the two of us, no drama. She met me at the door with a hug. "I've been waiting for you to crack," she said. Took longer than I thought. Inside, over coffee and takeout, I laid it all out: the shoebox, the texts, the emails, everything. She didn't blink, just nodded slowly, like someone reading a plot twist she already suspected. Then she pulled out her phone and showed me something I hadn't seen coming. A group chat. A family one. Fam Jam, it was called. Real original. Screenshots, dozens, hundreds. Texts about me. Dad Sam's too uptight. He'd ruin the energy. Barbara, don't tell him about the trip until we're back. He always acts like a martyr. Frank, let's just enjoy it without the drama. He'll be fine. And then the one that flipped a switch I didn't even know I had. Mom, he's more useful when he feels left out. Keeps him in line. I read that line 5 times as the words scorched into my skull. More useful when he feels left out. That wasn't carelessness, that was strategy. They weren't just inconsiderate. They were manipulating me on purpose, keeping me isolated, emotionally starved. So I'd keep clinging, keep paying, keep proving my worth to people who never intended to love me back. And I had walked right into it, year after year. Nancy reached out, gently placing a hand over mine. They've been doing this since college. She said, making you the outsider? I thought you knew. I didn't, not really, not until now, but I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to scream. That wasn't the plan anymore. The plan was precision. So I called a friend of mine from college, David, a lawyer who owed me a favor. I told him everything. Laid it out, not with rage, with receipts. Can I legally distance myself, I asked. No contact, no liability, nothing. He nodded. Absolutely. We'll make it airtight. We spent the next few days drafting paperwork. A legal notice, a formal severance of all financial and legal dependency. We included bank records, debt summaries, even screenshots of family messages. I signed every page with a calm I hadn't known in years. Then I went a step further. I found the old emails I used to wire money for my parents' rent, and I contacted their landlord directly. Hi, Mr. Ryan, this is Samuel Hart. I will no longer be financially responsible for the tenants in Unit 2B, effective immediately. He didn't sound surprised, just said understood. It's about time. The fallout was swift. 3 days later, I got a voicemail from my father, furious. Are you trying to ruin us? You told the landlord, what's wrong with you? I didn't reply. Barbara texted, you're making it public now. This is private family stuff. I texted back one word, should have thought of that before you made it strategic. Then I blocked her again. Mom sent a handwritten note. No apology, no remorse. Just I hope you're happy now. You've broken this family. No, I thought, you broke it. I just stopped taping it back together. Nancy helped me post a calm, factual message on Facebook. No names, just clarity. For years, I provided financial support to my family quietly, consistently, and without recognition. After discovering deliberate exclusion and manipulation, I've chosen to step back entirely. I wish them well, but I'm choosing peace over dysfunction. The comments poured in. Some supportive, some shocked. One aunt said, we always thought you were just distant, didn't know you were holding it all together. Another cousin messaged, they lied to all of us, said you were unstable, that you snapped. Now I see the truth. And the truth, it felt better than revenge. It felt like freedom. I didn't want to destroy them. I just wanted them to face the mirror they spent years hiding from. No money, no spin, no more useful outsider to prop up the illusion. And slowly, deliciously, they were unraveling. 3 weeks. That's how long it took for everything to start falling apart. I didn't send threats. I didn't make dramatic announcements. I didn't even raise my voice. I just stopped saving people who were never drowning, just lazy. The first domino fell when Mr. Ryan, my parents' landlord, posted a formal notice of delinquency on their apartment door. Bright orange, taped right where the whole building could see. Barbara texted me a photo of it like it was some kind of weapon. Barbara, seriously, public humiliation now. I didn't reply. What was there to say I hadn't humiliated them? I had simply walked away. Then came the group message sent from an alternate account Mom created after I blocked her everywhere else. Mom, you've made your point. Can we talk? Please, we're willing to find a solution. Translation, their plan failed. They thought if they pushed hard enough, I'd fold. But here's the thing about people like that, they mistake kindness for weakness. And I had finally stopped being kind. Not cruel, just clear. A few days later, Frank's car got repossessed. I only knew because he posted a photo of the empty driveway with the caption, "Loyalty means nothing anymore." Oh, the irony. He'd used my money to lease a luxury car, bragged about it, then acted shocked when his own irresponsibility caught up. Even better, that lease, it had been co-signed in my name. I'd signed it years ago under pressure, thinking I was helping him rebuild after he lost his job unfairly. Guess who canceled the co-signer agreement 3 weeks ago? That's right, me. I didn't even gloat. I just smiled. The messages started slowing down after that. Not because they were giving up, but because they were recalculating, trying to figure out who else they could bleed now that their favorite ATM had closed. Barbara sent me another message. Barbara, You're enjoying this, aren't you? Me, no, I'm surviving it. Then silence. I kept living, kept working, kept breathing in the air that suddenly tasted lighter. And that's when it happened. The call I didn't expect. Nancy, you need to see something. She sent a screenshot, a GoFundMe, titled, "Help Our Parents Stay in Their Home." My parents, posting publicly, pleading with strangers. They framed it as a tragic case of sudden abandonment by their only financially stable child, claimed I had a mental break, cut them off overnight, and refused all contact. Frank shared it, so did Barbara. They used old family photos, ones where I was smiling, unsuspecting, like I belonged, and they raised over $2,000 in 2 days. My stomach twisted, not because of the money, but because they still didn't get it. They were selling a story, not the truth. But this time, I was ready. I logged into an old shared Google Drive account they'd forgotten I had access to. And there it was, photos from the vacation, dated weeks before the trip, family retreat plan spreadsheets, group chats plotting it out, Frank making jokes about leaving me off the RSVP list, Mom suggesting they block him just in case. I downloaded it all. Then I made a new post. Since my family has decided to raise money based on a fictional narrative, I'd like to offer clarity. I wasn't abandoning anyone. I was excluded intentionally, repeatedly, strategically. For those wondering, here's some context. Then I attached screenshots, group chat snippets, vacation planning documents, Frank's message, "Let's just enjoy ourselves without the guilt trip this time." Barbara's reply, "He's only helpful when he feels like we owe him. So let's not owe him." And finally, Mom's message, "Leave him out. He's more valuable when he's desperate for inclusion." The post went viral within our circles. The comments were brutal. Uncle Dennis, "This is beyond shameful. You lied to all of us." Family friend, "So disappointed, we donated based on lies. Refund requested." Nancy posted her own story in the comments, said I'd been covering expenses for a decade, that I was the one who paid for their medical bills, their food, their gas. My cousin Maria added, "They made Sam look unstable, but they were just mad they lost their favorite bank." By nightfall, the GoFundMe was shut down. Frank tried to defend himself in his stories, said I was taking things out of context. But screenshots don't lie. Barbara went quiet. Mom deleted her Facebook. And Dad, he sent one final message from a burner account. "Dad, you'll regret this. One day. You'll need us." Me, I did. For years. You weren't there. Then I blocked that account too. My phone didn't buzz again for a long time. A few nights later, I stood on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker like nervous little stars. And I realized this was peace. Not the loud kind, not the joyful kind, but the kind that feels like air in your lungs for the first time in years. The kind that doesn't ask you to explain yourself or buy your way into love. I still had the shoebox, I still had the texts, but I didn't feel bitter. Not anymore, because they were finally exposed. And I hadn't had to lift a finger in anger, just a mirror. It's been 3 months since I walked away. 3 months since I blocked their numbers, shut the door, and finally gave myself permission to stop bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand me a Band-Aid. And you know what? They're still out there floundering, scrambling, probably working overtime to recast themselves as victims. I haven't checked. I don't need to. Because for once, my story isn't about them anymore. It's about me. The first few weeks were weird. Not hard, just quiet. I kept bracing for the next explosion, the next email from a new account, the next family friend trying to broker peace, but none came. And eventually, I realized the quiet wasn't the calm before the storm. It was the storm, and it had already passed. And I was still standing. One Saturday morning, I did something I hadn't done in over a decade. I slept in. No anxious texts jolting me awake. No calendar reminders about bills that weren't mine. Just sunlight, coffee, and silence. It felt like borrowing someone else's life. But the longer I lived it, the more I realized it was mine now. It had always been mine. I just hadn't been allowed to live it. Around that time, I started therapy. The first session, I said, I feel like I just escaped a cult, and no one warned me that freedom would feel so disorienting. My therapist smiled. That's because your nervous system got trained to survive chaos. Now it's learning to rest. We unpacked everything, not just the betrayal, but the foundation that made me tolerate it for so long. The little boy who was told don't make a fuss every time his needs got ignored. The teenager who got a pat on the head for handing over his savings while his brother got a new car. The adult who thought if he just kept giving, one day they'd let him sit at the table, not just serve it. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't heartless. I was just finally awake. That same month, I updated my LinkedIn and got offered a new consulting role, one that paid more, respected boundaries, and let me work remotely from anywhere. So I did something I never thought I'd have the guts to do. I booked a one-way flight, not to escape. To begin, I moved to a small city on the coast somewhere quiet, with ocean air and a downtown that still closes on Sundays. I rented a sunlit apartment above a bakery and spent the first week learning how to just be. I'd go on long walks with no destination, try new recipes, sit on my balcony with a book I might not even finish. And not once did my phone ring with a demand. Not once did I feel like I was failing someone by taking care of myself. The first time I bought something just for me, a ridiculous, overpriced espresso machine, I almost put it back on the shelf. My brain whispered, "What if mom needs rent next month?" Then I laughed, out loud. Because she didn't, because I didn't, because that chapter was closed. Eventually, I got a message from Nancy. She wasn't reaching out to drag me back, she just wanted to check in. Her text read, "I saw your Instagram. You look peaceful. I don't think I've ever seen that look on you." I told her the truth. That's because I finally left the war zone. She said she was proud of me, that she'd been inspired to draw boundaries of her own, that her own mom, the queen of denial, was starting to realize not everyone was willing to play the family guilt lottery anymore. It wasn't vindication, it was evolution. Months passed, seasons shifted. I started hosting little dinner nights, nothing big, just a few new friends I'd made through work, a neighbor who taught me how to make sourdough, the barista who remembered my name by day 3. And one night, as we sat laughing around the table, music humming in the background, something hit me so hard I nearly lost my breath. I didn't feel like an outsider anymore. I wasn't waiting to be accepted. I wasn't holding my breath for an apology. I wasn't bracing for the next guilt trip disguised as a phone call. I belonged, not because I bought my way in, but because I chose these people and they chose me back. No conditions, no contracts, no strings tied to emotional blackmail. Just real, raw, uncomplicated presence. Sometime later, I heard from a distant cousin that my parents had moved out of the apartment, downsized, that Frank was back living with them, that Barbara had gone no contact with both of them after realizing she was being used too. I didn't celebrate, didn't gloat, just nodded. The karma train didn't need a conductor. It knew exactly where to go. I haven't spoken to my parents since the last message I sent. Find someone else to fund your lifestyle. I'm done. And I am. Done explaining, done apologizing, done trying to be worthy of a love that was never unconditional. But I'm not bitter. Bitterness is a cage, and I've already served my sentence. Now, I'm planting new roots, not ones wrapped around obligation, but ones reaching toward peace. I started painting again, badly but joyfully. I took a solo trip to Japan, just me, a backpack, and no itinerary. I adopted a senior cat from the local shelter and named him Ghost. He sits on my lap while I work and purrs like a tiny engine. And every time I glance down at him, or sip espresso from the machine I used to feel guilty about, I whisper the same 3 words to myself. I chose this, because that's the thing about starting over. It's not just about walking away. It's about walking toward something better. Toward rest, toward love, toward a life where peace isn't earned, it's simply allowed. And that finally is where my story ends. Not with an apology, not with a family reunion, not with a screaming match or a courtroom victory. Just me, whole, quiet, and for the first time in my life, home. Story 2. My name is Eric Bennett. I'm 34 years old, and I stopped being the good son on my mother's birthday. It started like every other performance we called a family gathering. White linen tablecloths, gold-trimmed plates, and expensive wine none of them could pronounce. My mom loved playing hostess Janet Bennett, queen of suburban high society. My dad, Charles, was her loyal audience, always clapping from the sidelines as she dazzled with her faux elegance. My younger sister, oh, you'd love her. Madison. Madison with the Instagram-perfect curls, the $1,000 handbags, and a smile so sharp it could slice your self-worth in half. That day, during the toasts, Madison clinked her glass like she was accepting an Oscar. "A toast," she said, batting her eyelashes toward my parents. "Thanks for the $20,000 loan. Eric, I'll consider it an early inheritance." The room went quiet. Then came the laughter. My mother dabbed her eyes with her napkin like she couldn't breathe from how funny it was. My dad leaned back, grinning like he'd just watched a winning touchdown. I just smiled, took a sip of wine, and silently hit send on the email I'd drafted 3 nights earlier. My laptop sat open in my bedroom at home. That single click, it triggered a chain of events I'd been planning for weeks. Here's the thing: I never gave Madison any money. She stole it. I discovered it when I received a letter from the bank about a $20,000 loan supposedly taken out in my name. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but after a long, grinding session with the bank's fraud department, I learned the truth. Someone had used my social security number, my signature, and even accessed my online account using my old password. It didn't take much to figure out who. Madison had always been reckless with money. I'd bailed her out once in college when she racked up credit card debt investing in her Etsy business. My parents called it a phase. I called it identity theft with glitter. But this time this wasn't a phase. It was fraud. And when I confronted my parents, the reaction was exactly what I feared. "You probably just forgot." "Honey," my mom said without looking up from her magazine, "you're always helping your sister." Dad didn't say a word, just gave me a look that meant, let it go. That's when I realized they weren't just blind, they were complicit. And that's when I decided I was done. I wasn't the scapegoat anymore. I wasn't the emotional punching bag or the fallback emergency fund. I was their insurance policy, only useful when they needed to clean up Madison's mess. So I flipped the script. That email I sent, it triggered a bank review of the forged loan. I had all the evidence ready: the fake signature, the login history, the IP addresses, and the second email, that one went to the mortgage lender. Madison had been using my credit score to boost my parents' refinancing application last year, quietly, illegally. By morning, the mortgage on their 5-bedroom palace had doubled. Their savings started draining fast from adjusted payments they weren't prepared for. Meanwhile, Madison's car, her precious white BMW with the custom plates, was halfway to being auctioned after a tip-off. I sent triggered a repo. And then came the cherry on top, an anonymous fraud alert that froze every bank account tied to my stolen identity. I wasn't just hitting back. I was reclaiming my name. The next morning, I woke up to 9 missed calls, 5 from Madison, 3 from Mom, 1 from Dad. I made coffee and ignored them. They could stew. This wasn't a tantrum, this was a reckoning. Then my grandfather called. Unlike my parents, Grandpa Ray had always been different. He never treated me like the runner-up son. I spent my best childhood summers with him and Grandma Linda on their farm outside of Bridgewater. No judgment, no manipulation, just quiet mornings, hard work, and grilled cheese sandwiches that tasted like love. When I picked up the phone, his voice was low but calm. "Eric," he said, "I think it's time we talked." I drove out that afternoon. Grandma met me on the porch, wearing her favorite blue cardigan and a look that told me she already knew what was happening. Inside, the kitchen smelled like cinnamon and fresh coffee. It felt like stepping into a time machine built on warmth and safety. Grandpa was waiting at the kitchen table with a thick folder in front of him. "We've been watching this unfold," he said. "We've got some things to show you." Inside the folder were bank statements, emails, even security footage from the bank. My grandparents had been quietly collecting evidence for months. They knew something was wrong. Madison had tried to get them to co-sign a loan last year. When they refused, she got aggressive. That's when the red flags started stacking. "We didn't want to interfere," Grandma said, "but after what she did to you, we can't sit back." "We've got a friend," Grandpa added. "Retired judge? Still sharp. He's going to help you press charges if you want to." I stared at the folder in silence. I had planned this revenge alone. I didn't expect anyone to stand beside me. And yet, here they were. The only 2 people in my family who ever really saw me. I nodded slowly. "Let's do it." Grandpa smiled, the corners of his weathered face softening. "Good. Let's make sure this doesn't get swept under the rug." By the next morning, the panic had begun. Madison blew up my phone texts, calls, even a few voice messages where her voice swung between rage and desperation. I didn't listen to them. I was busy. I had just gotten off a call with Mr. Caldwell, the retired judge my grandparents trusted. He wasn't exactly retired. He still consulted on select cases, especially ones involving white-collar fraud. When I explained what happened, he didn't sound surprised. "People like your sister count on family shame keeping everything quiet," he said. But shame works both ways. Within hours, we were pulling bank records, checking credit reports, and filing the beginnings of a formal complaint, Madison's identity theft. That was just the tip of the iceberg. I found out she had used my name not once, but 3 times in the last 4 years. The student loan I thought she paid off during her career sabbatical, in my name. The emergency dental surgery she bragged about getting for free through a hookup charged to a health card co-signed under mine. Even the credit card she borrowed while I was out of the country used it to buy a designer purse, book a luxury Airbnb, and then close the card without telling me. That wasn't borrowing, that was systematic theft. And still, my parents acted like none of it mattered. I knew this because I saw them that evening unplanned, unavoidable. They showed up at my apartment. My buzzer rang as I was sipping coffee and reviewing documents with Mr. Caldwell. I didn't need to check the camera feed. My mother's sharp knock was unmistakable light but loaded with tension. When I opened the door, there they were. Mom in her beige trench coat, lips pursed like she was holding back a scolding, Dad in his navy sweater, arms crossed, trying too hard to look composed. "We need to talk," Mom said, pushing past me without waiting for an answer. She scanned the apartment with visible disdain. No candles, no coordinated throw pillows, certainly not the Instagrammable setting she expected. Dad closed the door behind him. "Son, we've got a situation." I leaned against the kitchen counter and crossed my arms. "Oh, I thought you had everything under control." "We didn't know Madison took that loan in your name," Mom snapped. "She told us you agreed. How were we supposed to know?" I scoffed. "You didn't ask. You never ask. You didn't answer her messages either," Dad added, his tone growing sharper. "Now the bank says your complaint has triggered a fraud investigation. Our accounts are frozen. The house refinancing is on hold. Do you understand how this affects us?" There it was. The truth. It wasn't about what happened to me. It was about what was happening to them. "I understand perfectly," I said. "I've been the backup plan for years. Now the safety net's gone, and you're both scared." "We're your parents," my mother said, her voice cracking like glass. "You're supposed to support your family." "No," I said, stepping forward, voice level. "You're supposed to protect your children. But when your golden child robbed me blind, you turned away." She flinched. For the first time in my life, I saw something like shame in her expression. "We can fix this," Dad said, his tone softening as he realized the performance was over. "We can work it out. Quietly. Drop the charges. We'll pay you back." I shook my head. "I don't want your money. I want accountability. You raised Madison to believe she could do whatever she wanted, and you never once stopped to think about who had to pay for it." They stood there, stunned. "You made your choices," I said. "Now it's my turn." They left soon after, the silence between us thicker than the November air. That same night, Madison showed up. She banged on my door like a hurricane in heels, mascara streaked down her cheeks, and fury written all over her face. "You destroyed everything," she yelled the moment I opened the door. "No," I said calmly. "You did that when you stole from me." Her hands were shaking. "It was a loan. You forged my name 3 times. I was going to pay you back. When after your next TikTok went viral, after another shopping haul." Her lip quivered. "They're saying I could go to jail." "You can," I said, stepping closer, lowering my voice. "And maybe you should." She started sobbing. Actual, hiccuping sobs that would have gutted me if I hadn't spent the last decade watching her use those tears like weapons. This wasn't regret, it was survival instinct. "I'm not the villain," she whimpered. "No, Madison," I said quietly. "You're just not the victim either." She stormed out, and I didn't follow. The next day, Mr. Caldwell filed the official report with the district attorney. We didn't just attach financial records, we included a statement from me, a notarized testimony from my grandparents, and copies of all the forged documents. Then came the wild card. My dad's company caught wind of the investigation, and since his name was on one of the credit applications Madison forged, likely trying to boost her approval, he was now implicated in potential financial misconduct. By the weekend, he was suspended pending review. My mother, who'd built her life around charity luncheons and garden club galas, found herself quietly dropped from the board of her favorite arts foundation. No explanations, just a quiet email thanking her for her service and encouraging her to focus on family. And Madison, she went dark online. Her last post, a picture of her by a Christmas tree with the caption, Family is everything was flooded with comments accusing her of theft, fraud, and worse. She deleted the post, then her account. She had gone from micro-influencer to public pariah in less than 72 hours. Back at my grandparents' house, we sat on the porch drinking warm cider. I always wondered how much longer they'd pretend. Grandpa said, rocking in his chair, "Guess it took you blowing up the stage for the spotlight to shift." "Do you think I went too far?" I asked. Grandma set her mug down and looked me straight in the eyes. "Honey, all you did was pull back the curtain. The rest, that was their own act falling apart." I let that settle in. I had tried to warn them, to ask for help, to be the son who didn't make waves. But all it did was teach them how to ignore me better. Now they couldn't look away. And I wasn't finished yet. By the time the formal complaint reached the DA's office, the dominoes had already started falling faster than any of us expected. It turns out, the web Madison wove was bigger than even I imagined. She hadn't just stolen from me. She'd been juggling fake income statements, bogus sponsorship deals, and even a dummy LLC she registered under my name for tax write-offs. Every time she smiled into her phone camera, peddling another skincare line or luxury robe, she was leveraging a house of stolen cards. And now that house was crashing down. A week after my parents left my apartment in stunned silence, I got a call from Mr. Caldwell. "We have a problem," he said, though he didn't sound worried. What kind of problem? The kind that turns into opportunity. That got my attention. He forwarded me an email thread between Madison's PR agent and a defense attorney. They were trying to resolve the matter privately, their words, before it reached public court records. "They're scared," Mr. Caldwell said. "Scared this gets picked up by national outlets. Scared the influencer gig disappears completely." I wasn't surprised. Madison built her whole career on the illusion of perfection. Her followers weren't going to stick around for mugshots and fraud charges. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I thought about it. About how many nights I stayed awake wondering why I wasn't enough for my parents. About all the times I bailed Madison out silently, believing it was what family did. About the humiliation of having a credit score drop overnight because of loans I didn't take. I want her to feel what I felt. I said finally, "Let her sweat." We declined the private settlement. 3 days later, the DA's office confirmed they were moving forward with the investigation. The charges included identity theft, wire fraud, and financial misrepresentation enough to warrant court proceedings and potentially jail time if convicted. Madison went underground. Her Instagram was wiped clean. Her TikTok bio changed to taking time offline to focus on family. Comments were disabled. Her usual glossy updates replaced by complete silence. My parents, on the other hand, became very, very vocal. They started calling daily, sometimes separately, sometimes together, always with the same undertone panic wrapped in denial. "You've made your point," Dad said in one voicemail. "Just tell them to drop it. She's your sister." My mom's messages were more emotional. "This is tearing us apart. Jonathan, please, you can fix this. Family doesn't do this to each other." I deleted them all. Family didn't do what Madison did. Family didn't stay silent while their child was robbed and lied to. Family didn't laugh at a stolen inheritance and call it a joke. And they were about to lose more than just peace of mind. I met with my grandparents again the following week. We sat down with a second lawyer, one who specialized in estate protection. Quietly, efficiently, we rewrote the will. Originally, the estate would have been split 3 ways: me, Madison, and a small charitable donation fund. But now Madison's name was gone. My parents' names were gone too. "It's not about the money," I told them. "I know." My grandfather replied, "It's about showing them they don't get to write you out and still cash in." 2 nights later, the real blow hit. The foreclosure notice. My parents had refinanced the house 6 months prior, using inflated income numbers that no longer held water. Now that my dad was under review and their accounts frozen, their savings were locked up, and the payments already high had doubled thanks to default penalties. They called it a technical error. The bank called it ineligible collateral. Their house, the same one I grew up in, the same one they turned into a monument to Madison's success, was officially going up for auction. It should have felt like vindication, like some poetic justice. Instead, it felt empty. That night, I drove past the house. It was quiet. The porch light still flickered like it always had. The same wind chimes hung by the front door, but the car in the driveway was different, smaller, older, probably a loner. And for a second, I almost knocked. Almost. But then I remembered Lisa's voice, smug and practiced, saying, "Consider it an early inheritance. and my mother's laughter ringing out like I was some amusing afterthought. No, they earned this. The next morning, Madison's name appeared in the local paper. Just a short piece: social media influencer under investigation for fraud allegations. It wasn't front page, it wasn't scandalous, but it was real. The comments online were brutal. Another influencer grift exposed. Hope she tagged the courtroom in her next post. She tried damage control. Released a short video with trembling hands and red-rimmed eyes, blaming accounting errors and miscommunications. She never said my name, never acknowledged what she did, but the damage was done. Her following tanked, brand deals vanished. The platform that gave her everything turned on her overnight. And me, I slept better than I had in years. Still, Mr. Caldwell warned me the legal battle wasn't over. Madison's team might try to settle again, or drag it out, or turn on my parents to shift blame. He advised patience, but I had plenty of that, because while they were scrambling, I was building. I'd taken a new job, moved into a better apartment, even started seeing someone who didn't care about my last name or my family drama. For the first time, my life felt mine. Then came the final twist. Mr. Caldwell called me one morning, his tone different, curious, almost impressed. I think your sister just tried to drag your father into the case. He said, what? She submitted a statement suggesting your dad helped her with the paperwork, that he might have known what she was doing. My stomach dropped. And your mom, she's denying everything. But there are emails, messages, phone calls. It's unraveling fast. I stared out the window for a long time after we hung up. They were turning on each other. The same family that once closed ranks around Madison, that defended her no matter how wrong she was now collapsing in on itself. And I hadn't lifted a finger. The day I received the official court date was the same day I found out my father had lost his job. Not suspended this time, terminated. Quietly, without ceremony, his name wiped from the firm's website. No press release, just a handshake and an NDA. He likely didn't have the leverage to negotiate. I found out through a contact Mr. Caldwell had in their compliance department. Apparently, the moment Madison implicated him in the loan forgery, the board had no choice. His financial signature had appeared on 2 separate documents tied to the dummy LLC. Whether he had knowingly participated or simply turned a blind eye didn't matter anymore. He was liability now. And just like that, the man who once bragged that he'd never worked under anyone less competent than himself was unemployed, under investigation, and rapidly running out of favors. My mother didn't take it well. Her silence had grown longer and more frantic. No more voicemails, just occasional texts, single words like please or talk or enough. She still couldn't bring herself to apologize, but she could beg. And Madison, she'd vanished completely. Her socials were dark, her website down. Even her LinkedIn had been scrubbed. I later found out she'd moved in with a friend some luxury condo downtown that she could no longer afford on her own. Funny how quickly people scatter when the spotlight turns harsh. The trial was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. I showed up wearing a gray suit I'd borrowed from my grandfather. It was a little old-fashioned, but it fit well. And more importantly, it made me feel protected. I didn't bring anyone with me. I didn't need the emotional crutch. I was done letting other people speak for me. When I walked into that courtroom, Madison was already seated. She looked nothing like the version of herself she had once performed online. Her hair was pulled back hastily, her eyes sunken. No makeup, no smile, just fear. She didn't look up when I passed her. The judge entered. Proceedings began. And just like that, the final chapter of our shared history started writing itself under oath. The prosecution laid everything bare. The stolen identity, the forged loan, the unauthorized bank access. They even played surveillance footage from the credit union, the one that showed Madison walking in with a forged ID and a trembling smile, pretending to be me. She tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, a miscommunication between family, a favor gone wrong. But the evidence was overwhelming. Even her lawyer seemed to lose steam halfway through. And when they submitted the altered inheritance documents she had doctored attempting to siphon an early cash out from our grandparents' trust, there wasn't a single sympathetic face left in that room, except my mother's. She sat 3 rows back, her posture stiff, her makeup perfect, but her eyes betrayed her. They followed Madison like a hawk, not with concern, but fear. Fear of what would come next. When it was my turn to speak, I walked up to the witness stand and took a deep breath. I told the truth. About the loan, the forged documents, the voicemail from my mom saying, "You're always so generous." The moment I realized they didn't see me as a son or brother but a safety net, and the moment I decided to cut it, the room was quiet when I finished. The judge nodded solemnly. Even Madison's lawyer didn't cross-examine me. There was nothing left to say. When the judge read the sentence, 3 years probation, 400 hours of community service, and restitution paid in full, Madison broke. She covered her face and sobbed, her shoulders shaking so violently that the bailiff stepped forward, unsure if she needed help. My mother reached for her. Madison pulled away. That was new. That night, I didn't go home. I went to the land my grandparents gave me, just a small patch outside the city, but it felt like the world. I parked by the tree line and sat on the hood of my car, watching the sky go from orange to deep indigo. The air smelled clean, like earth and possibility. I thought about building something there one day, maybe not a house, not yet, but a place, a space of my own, something real, something earned. A week after the trial, I received a letter from Madison. It was handwritten, messy, emotional. She said she was sorry, said she didn't expect things to go so far, said she never felt like she could live up to the family's expectations, and stealing from me felt like a shortcut to worthiness. I didn't think it would matter. She wrote, "You always seem so removed from us, like you didn't need anything." She was wrong. I had needed something. Not money, not approval, just acknowledgement. But I wasn't bitter anymore. I didn't write back. 2 months passed. My parents lost the house. Foreclosure finalized. Their names scrubbed from the local registry. They'd moved into a modest rental in a suburb 2 towns over. I heard through a neighbor that they kept the curtains closed most days, that my mother had stopped going to the country club, that my dad had taken a part-time job doing financial consulting for small businesses under the table. Of course, I didn't check in, didn't respond to the holiday email, didn't send a gift for my mom's birthday. Instead, I planted a tree right in the center of the land my grandparents left me. A small sapling, still fragile but alive, just like me. Story 3. My name's Noah Grant, and I used to think weddings were the beginning of something beautiful. Turns out, they can also be the moment you find out exactly where you stand in your own family. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The venue was perfect outdoor garden, string lights overhead, soft jazz playing as the sun dipped low. My fiancée Ava had family fly in from 3 different states. Her aunts, uncles, childhood friends, even her 94-year-old grandfather made the trip. Everyone showed up for her. And for me, my side looked bare. My parents, my sister Harper, and my brother Dylan had all called the week before, each delivering the same excuse in slightly different tones. We tested positive for COVID. We're so heartbroken. Noah, we wouldn't miss this if we had a choice. I believed them. I didn't question it. I even felt sorry for them, imagining them isolated and sick, missing this milestone. During rehearsal, I took photos of the setup and texted them updates. I wanted them to feel included. I even FaceTimed my mom from the dressing room before I put my suit on. She looked tired, said she was trying to rest. I wished her well. The ceremony still felt magical. Ava's family made me feel like I belonged. Her mom hugged me like I was already her son. Her cousins danced like they'd known me forever. The vows were real. Our love was real. But the next morning, that's when the illusion shattered. I was sitting at the edge of our hotel bed, scrolling through Facebook while Ava was still asleep, and then I saw it. A photo, a wide sun-drenched group photo, palm trees in the background, everyone smiling, tanned, wearing leis, my parents, my siblings, their spouses. Even my cousin Micah, the one who supposedly had a chronic cough, was there, raising a glass of something tropical. I didn't even get angry. Not at first. I just stared at it. The ocean in the background felt like it was laughing at me. I hit like, then I commented, "Fine, now you can pay without me," and I left the family group chat. They didn't respond. Ava and I spent the next few days finalizing the marriage license, helping clean up the venue, packing up decorations. I didn't tell her what I'd seen yet. Not because I was hiding it, I just didn't know how to say it without cracking. We'd planned to head home together, but I left a day early. See, while I'd been away working on construction contracts across the country, my family had been living in the house I inherited from my grandfather. I let them stay there rent-free. My dad always called it our home. Said I was saving the family without even realizing it. Now I realized it. I changed the locks before they got back. I packed up their things, boxed everything, labeled it all neatly. I gave them 7 days from the moment they walked in to find somewhere else. When they arrived, they didn't scream, they didn't throw a scene, they just stood there, stunned. My dad tried the key twice, then checked the handle like maybe it was just a jam. I watched them from upstairs, sipping coffee. A few minutes later, I got a text from Harper. "What's going on? Why won't the door open?" I replied. "You have 7 days to move out. After that, it's eviction." No hi, no let's talk, just the facts. That night, they camped out on the porch like confused tourists. My dad shouted at the windows. My mom cried. Dylan called me a psycho, loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. No one came out to help them. My neighbor, Mrs. Haskins, sent me a heart emoji and said she was proud of me. Day 2, fewer outbursts. They tried reasoning. My mom left a handwritten letter under the door. I didn't read it. Day 3, they vanished for a while, then returned with fast food and sat in the backyard like it was a picnic. They laughed, like this was all just a weird misunderstanding. Day 4, I got a fraud alert. Someone had used my old joint account to check into a cheap roadside motel 2 towns over. It was an account I thought I'd closed years ago. Apparently, I hadn't, and now the statement read like a confession. 2 first-class tickets to Maui, 3 coach, resort stays, spa packages, jet ski rentals, brunches, all of it charged to my name. My family didn't just skip my wedding, they used my money to do it. I sat there in the kitchen that night, staring at the screen while Ava made dinner. She noticed my silence, walked over, and poured me a glass of whiskey. She didn't say much, just one sentence. "You know what you have to do." And I did. The morning after I told Ava about the fraud, the air felt different, sharp with purpose. I'd figured out their Hawaii secret, but the cost? It was more than just money. It was betrayal layered on betrayal. I started by calling the bank. I wanted every detailed: dates, locations, amounts. As I listened, my stomach knotted tighter. Every charge, every boarding pass, every spa receipt, they were proof, and they were mine, yet they weren't mine. Essentials: first-class flight to Maui, $12,000, resort upgrade, $3,500, jet ski rentals and activities, $800, brunches for 6, $400, beach selfies, souvenirs, $600, hotel by the airport, $250, total nearly $17,550, all run through my old account, still legally linked to them. They thought they were invisible. I printed everything out, then I called my attorney. I want to talk eviction, but also theft and identity fraud. I told him. He said, "This is criminal. Civil won't be enough." I paused. Yes, bring both. The next step: containment. I called the utility companies and changed every account: phone, internet, electricity. I canceled subscriptions they'd linked. I froze the joint credit. I transferred the mortgage payments to a new account only I could access. Everything they'd taken from me, I was taking back. They showed up again that evening, this time at dusk. They stood on the front porch, not loud or angry, just desperate. My curtains were drawn tight. I stood behind them, watching. Mom looked at the door. "Noah, please, just come out." I didn't. Harper's phone buzzed. Dylan said something I couldn't hear. Then Harper wrote, "Ethan, you're making a mistake." They looked lost. It was the same lost I once felt watching from the shadows of my own wedding. But I didn't feel lost anymore. 2 days later, I delivered the eviction notice in person while they were barbecuing in the backyard with friends. I handed it to my mother like it was a menu, polite and firm. 7 days. She nodded. Didn't cry. She just turned and walked away. I left without looking back. They didn't pack. They didn't argue. They delayed and negotiated. They hoped I'd relent, but I didn't. That night, Ava held my hand and said, "I'm proud of you." I didn't cry, but I wanted to. But there was another ledger to settle. The theft, the mountains of receipts, the forged identities, the silent excuses. With my attorney's help, I filed 2 cases: civil suit theft, breach of fiduciary duty, emotional distress. I demanded repayment plus damages to cover the wedding, the pain, the humiliation, criminal complaint, identity fraud and unauthorized withdrawals, evidence charges, IP logs, bank statements, flight records. And I prepared documents for 2 extra lines. Documentation showing my renewed independence, new accounts, no liens, no joint dependencies. A timeline of my family's silence, the lies, and the staged sick texts. A few days later, a note appeared under my door. "Noah, we need to talk. Let us explain, please." It was unsigned, maybe my mom's handwriting. I didn't open it, but I did reply. I sent them a text. "No. You had your chance. Today is the last day." That night, they were gone. The house was empty. I drove past it the next morning. No cars, no furniture, no curtains. Just a silent house, like a ghost ship. I parked across the street, standing there with my new phone in hand. A family friend walked by and nodded. I gave her a small wave. On my way home, I heard nothing. No guilt, no shame, just the wind through the trees. A few weeks later, I got a settlement offer from their attorney. They would repay everything: hotel, flights, wedding costs, plus emotional damages in exchange for me dropping the criminal complaint and evicting them peacefully. I forwarded it to my attorney without reading. He looked at me. "Do you want money or do you want accountability?" I said, "Accountability." We declined. The next morning, their attorney called and said the DA was reviewing the evidence. My filing had triggered an investigation. That afternoon, my phone rang. Input unknown caller. I didn't answer. 20 minutes later, voicemail. "Noah, I'm so sorry. Please just know, Mom." I deleted it. Hello. 2 months later, I invited Ava's parents over for dinner. I cooked salmon. We ate on the porch. The house was warm. The laughter was easy. I closed my eyes and listened to the hum of cicadas. This was home. Proof that I could build something better than cold loyalty and empty words. 3 weeks ago, I learned my lawsuit was scheduled for discovery next month. I haven't heard from my family. Their lawyer asked if I'd accept an out-of-court mediation now. I'm not sure yet, because maybe what I really want is permission to let go completely. No threats, no conditions, no family, just a clean break. That's where I stand. And this time, I'm not walking back. A week before our court date, I got an unexpected email. The subject line was a single word: regret. It was from Harper. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. I half expected venom, another manipulative plea, but what I read caught me off guard. "Noah, I don't know what I thought was going to happen when we left. I think I told myself you'd understand, that you wouldn't care, that weddings aren't that big a deal. But I see now how stupid that was, how selfish. I know we used your card. I know what we did was more than just not showing up. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm not blind to it anymore. I hope someday you find peace, and maybe when you do, you'll leave a little space for the rest of us." I didn't reply, not because I wasn't moved, but because at that moment, I realized how many chances they'd all had. Guilt after consequences isn't the same as remorse. Ava read the email that night. She didn't say much, just slid her hand into mine and rested her head on my shoulder. We didn't need to talk about it. The trial went forward as scheduled. Their lawyer tried to argue it was all a misunderstanding, a mix-up in family communication, and that the account wasn't clearly closed. My lawyer, Mr. Coulson, calmly handed over the file. Every statement, every message, screenshots, a full timeline. He laid it out like a crime scene. The judge barely flinched. When we presented evidence of the vacation planning before they called in sick, it was over. The tone shifted, from misunderstanding to deliberate misrepresentation. The civil suit ruled in my favor. They were ordered to repay everything plus legal fees, and they were barred from contacting me directly for 6 months. After the hearing, my father followed us out into the hall. "You don't have to do this," he said, voice low, his eyes tired. "We're still your family." I didn't stop walking. He didn't follow. A month passed. Then 2, their payments began arriving in small pieces, mostly wired. One came as a physical check from Harper, scribbled in her familiar cursive. I deposited it, but it felt strange, like holding a memory I didn't trust anymore. I had Coulson document everything. Not because I expected them to break the deal, but because I no longer accepted anything at face value. Meanwhile, life continued. Ava and I started restoring the backyard. We cleared the old overgrown garden beds, repainted the deck, and added lights around the porch. Sometimes we sat out there long after dark, talking about the future, not the past. One night, she asked if I'd ever want to start a family. I said, "Maybe, if I can give them something better than I had." She nodded. "You will." Weeks later, a letter arrived. No name on the envelope. Inside a folded piece of paper, just one sentence. "I'm sorry I let them do that to you. No signature. But I recognized the handwriting. My mom? I stared at it for a long time before tucking it in a drawer, not with the legal papers, not with the bank statements, just somewhere else. I wasn't ready to throw it out, but I wasn't ready to read it again either. 2 days later, the internet at our house dropped suddenly. At first, I thought it was a provider issue, but after a few calls, I learned that someone had attempted to change the login details on the account. Again, the account was still in my name and oversight from the early restoration phase, and apparently, someone had used old credentials to try and reset access. They failed, but the attempt triggered an alert. I called Coulson. I want everything transferred. Utilities, data, insurance, new names, new passwords. He replied, already done. I knew who it had been. And I knew this wasn't about connection. It was about control. A last-ditch attempt to retain some sliver of access to my life. But they didn't have that anymore. That Sunday, I took Ava to the land my grandfather left me, just a few acres, half-wooded, outside the city. We hadn't been there since the wedding. We stood under the old oak tree, sunlight falling in scattered patches through the branches. This was his favorite place. I said. She smiled. You talk about him like he's still here. Sometimes, I think he is. I walked to the tree line, cleared some dead limbs, and paused. I think I want to build something here. I said quietly, a home, not just a house, something permanent. Ava didn't hesitate. Let's do it. The next morning, we called a contractor. 3 months after the ruling, the payments stopped. At first, I thought maybe they were just delayed, but by week 4, I knew it was intentional. It always is with them, disguised behind excuses and fake apologies, like clockwork. Coulson filed a formal complaint to the court. Meanwhile, I returned to the last place I wanted to revisit, my email inbox. And there it was, buried between bank alerts and contractor invoices, a message from Dylan. Noah, this is ridiculous. You got what you wanted. You're married. You got the house. We're done with this. Why keep bleeding us dry? Let it go. Man, seriously. The arrogance leapt off the screen. They still didn't see it. Still didn't understand that this wasn't about money. It was about the message. So I wrote back. Just 3 words. Pay or escalate. No reply. A week later, I had a lien placed on their current rental property. Legal, temporary, effective. And it worked. 3 days later, the payments resumed. Quietly, no contact, no more angry emails. And just like that, the final chapter of their reach into my life began to close. Meanwhile, Ava and I had started construction on the new house. It wasn't big, but it was ours. 2 bedrooms, a screened porch, a wide-open kitchen that smelled like pine and fresh tile. We'd drive out every weekend to walk the frame, sometimes barefoot, Ava holding iced tea in one hand and swatting mosquitoes with the other. This is the kind of place you bring people who deserve to sit on your porch, she said once, smiling at the foundation like it was already home. And that's when I realized I wasn't just moving forward, I was finally living. But peace doesn't come without echoes. One morning, a letter showed up addressed to Mr. Noah Grant, no return address, inside, a photo. It was an old picture, me, my mom, my dad, Harper, and Dylan at a baseball game. I must have been 11. I was grinning like an idiot, holding a foam finger. On the back of the photo, scribbled in pen, we weren't always broken. I stared at it for a long time, then I burned it in the fireplace. Because that was the truth. We weren't always broken, but they broke us. And I wasn't going to carry their memories like medals anymore. The house finished construction in late October. We moved in the day before the first frost. It was quiet, peaceful. The trees rustled outside the window like a lullaby. The fireplace crackled softly. Ava unpacked our favorite mugs and we made cocoa, like kids playing house. And for once, it wasn't pretend. That weekend, we invited her parents and my Aunt Elaine for dinner. She'd always been the quiet one in the family, never said much, but she showed up to the wedding, brought homemade cookies, hugged me like I mattered. Over dinner, she pulled me aside. I just want you to know. I saw it too, she said. The way they treated you. You weren't wrong. Noah, you just had the guts to do what no one else could. I nodded, unsure what to say. It was strange. Hearing validation from someone who'd never raised her voice, and it meant more than I could admit.
Jimmy.
A week later, Dylan tried one last time. He showed up at the new house. I saw him through the window before he even knocked. He looked thinner, tired, standing in jeans that didn't quite fit, no car, no suitcase, just a man who had finally run out of people to blame. I didn't open the door. He sat on the porch for 15 minutes before finally slipping something under the welcome mat and walking away. I waited until dusk to check. It was a handwritten letter. Messy, rushed, but honest. I never thought we'd fall apart like this. I miss you. I miss us. I'm sorry. No manipulation, no defense, just 3 final words. I was wrong. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't believe him, but because some bridges, even rebuilt, still carry the memory of fire. I filed the letter, like I did with the others, in a separate folder, one not labeled with anger. Just truth. Mebu. And here's the truth. For anyone reading, forgiveness doesn't always mean a reunion. Sometimes, it means reclaiming your space, your voice, your boundaries. Sometimes, it's knowing when to close the door and when to build something better on the other side. That's what Ava and I did. We built a home where no one gets in without kindness, where honesty matters more than blood, where showing up is the price of admission. And for the first time in my life, I finally understand. Family isn't who leaves you behind for a beach photo. Family is who stays when the music fades. The guests go home, and all that's left is the quiet truth of who showed up and who didn't. I know who did, and that's enough.